What happens when a black belt mocks a janitor, only to find out he just challenged a legend? In a quiet Denver dojo, laughter echoed as a martial arts instructor invited the janitor to spar. For fun. But within minutes, that laugh would fade into stunned silence. The man holding a mop was about to teach everyone in the room what true mastery looks like. This wasn't just about fighting. It was about respect, prejudice, and redemption. And by the end of that night, the dojo would never be the same. Because sometimes, strength doesn't roar. It arrives quietly and humbles those who need it most. It was a Thursday evening at Mitchell's Martial Arts Academy. The last class of the day was still on the mat. Derek Mitchell, a tall, confident black belt in his 30s, was showing off his techniques to a handful of advanced students. The gym lights reflected off his belt like a trophy, a symbol of authority. Near the corner, mopping the floor as usual, stood James Washington, the quiet janitor who had started working there just 3 weeks earlier. He was in his 40s, soft-spoken, deliberate in every movement. He never looked anyone directly in the eye, always spoke with respect, and always stayed after hours to clean once the students were gone. But that night, the class ran late. "Hey, you there, cleaning?" Derek called out, his voice echoing through the gym. "How about a quick demonstration? Let's show my students how a real fighter moves." Laughter rippled through the group. James stopped mopping, looked up calmly, and shook his head. "I don't want to bother you, Sensei," he said. But Derek's pride wouldn't let it go. To him, James wasn't just a janitor, he was an easy punchline. "Come on," Derek smirked. "Let's have a little fun. Unless you're scared?" The students' eyes darted between them, sensing tension. What none of them knew was that this simple moment, born out of arrogance, was about to unravel years of hidden history. James tried to ignore the taunt, returning to his work. But Derek wasn't done performing. He strutted across the mat, making sure every student was watching. "See this, everyone?" Derek said loudly. "This is what happens when people don't respect the discipline." Nervous laughter filled the room. James's hands paused on the mop handle. Something flickered behind his calm eyes, a spark buried deep beneath 2 decades of silence. Derek stepped closer, smirking. "You know how to fight, janitor?" "No, sir," James replied softly. "I just clean up after the ones who do." It was a humble answer, but Derek heard mockery in it. He laughed loudly, slapping his thigh. "Maybe you can clean the mat with your back after this." Students looked uneasy. One of them, a young woman named Sarah, shifted uncomfortably. She sensed something off, a tension too sharp to be just teasing. James finally set the mop aside. "All right," he said quietly, "but when this is done, you'll apologize to them for turning this dojo into a circus." Derek's smile froze. The janitor's tone was calm, yet carried an unfamiliar weight. The air thickened. Everyone could feel it. Something in this man wasn't ordinary. Derek's ego pushed him past the point of reason. He motioned the students to form a circle around the mat. "You're all about to see why respect is earned, not given," he boasted. James stepped onto the mat without hesitation. His movements were fluid, effortless, too controlled for a beginner. "Don't hurt yourself," Derek sneered. The janitor smiled faintly. "I'll try not to." That answer drew a few gasps. As Derek took his stance, his eyes locked on James's stillness. The janitor's posture was balanced, measured, like a man who had stood in that spot 1,000 times before. "Ready?" Derek barked. James simply nodded. Derek lunged first, a sharp jab, quick and practiced. But James wasn't there. He shifted slightly, letting the punch miss by an inch. The students blinked. It looked too clean to be luck. Derek attacked again, faster this time. A flurry of strikes, each missing by fractions. James never hit back. He only moved precisely, gracefully, like water slipping through fingers. The laughter died. Silence took over. Even Derek started to breathe heavier, his confidence draining. "Stop dancing and fight!" he yelled. James's voice stayed calm. "You wanted a demonstration. I'm giving you one." For the first time, the instructor felt something he hadn't in years: fear. Sarah, the observant student, couldn't hold her curiosity anymore. She quietly pulled out her phone and typed James's full name. James Washington fighter. What she found made her gasp audibly. She looked at the screen. Photos, articles, championship posters. Silent Storm Washington, she whispered. 5-time MMA world champion. The room froze as she spoke the words aloud. Derek's face drained of color. James closed his eyes briefly, as if remembering a life he'd buried. 20 years ago, he had left professional fighting after an accident took the life of his closest friend and training partner. Since then, he had promised never to fight again, but some promises break when dignity is at stake. He opened his eyes, calm, centered. "Derek," he said softly, "this isn't about fighting. It's about respect. Apologize to them for what you've taught them tonight." Derek tried to speak but couldn't. He was facing something no belt could prepare him for, a man who mastered not only combat, but himself. Desperation took over Derek. "Come on!" he shouted, charging forward with a textbook roundhouse kick. But before the students could blink, James sidestepped. The move looked almost effortless. Derek's foot sliced the air, his balance collapsing. James didn't strike. He just stepped closer. The distance shrank 1 inch at a time until Derek's instincts screamed danger. "Problem?" James asked quietly. Derek threw a punch out of reflex. James caught it midair. "No force, just control." The sound of the grip echoed through the gym, soft, decisive, final. He released him gently, then whispered, "You fight with anger. That's why you'll never understand power." But Derek, humiliated, attacked again. Jab, cross, hook, each faster than before, each missing. The students couldn't even follow the movements now. James wasn't dodging, he was anticipating. Every muscle knew what was coming before it happened, and then it ended. With one calm motion, James touched Derek's chest with an open palm. No punch, no aggression, just perfect timing, perfect energy transfer. Derek was lifted off his feet and landed flat on his back. The air left his lungs in a single gasp. The room went silent. Nobody clapped. Nobody spoke. James knelt beside him, extending a hand. "It's not about winning," he said. "It's about learning." Derek took the hand, trembling. In that moment, the black belt understood what true mastery meant. Not domination, but discipline. The next day, the story spread like wildfire. Students whispered about the janitor who defeated the sensei without throwing a single punch. Some admired James. Others felt ashamed for laughing. Derek changed. The arrogance was gone, replaced by humility. He apologized to every student, to James, and to himself. His once proud dojo became a quieter, more respectful place. Sarah convinced the gym's owner to hire James as an instructor, not for combat, but for philosophy and discipline. And slowly, the dojo began to transform. Every lesson now began with Derek's new mantra. Strength is not in power. It's in respect. True strength doesn't need to shout. It speaks through calmness, humility, and restraint. James Washington taught an entire room that night that titles, belts, and pride mean nothing without character. And sometimes, the people we overlook are the ones who remind us what greatness truly looks like. If this story moved you, remember, real warriors fight ego, not enemies. Subscribe for more stories that prove dignity always wins over arrogance.